In today's episode, we're joined by someone who truly believes in the power of connection. Meet my good friend Benny Fisher, the founder of Big Fish Contracting Company. He's a man on a mission to foster deep connections and bridge business owners to the right partners, which he believes is the key to success. However, his impact goes far beyond the business world. As someone who recognizes the deep struggles of addiction, he is passionate about raising awareness and breaking the stigmas around it. Benny is in the front lines of this battle, urging us to move away from the shame and instead offer support and understanding. In this episode, we explore Benny's unique gift for connecting people, his insights on helping others throughout their darkest moments, and how he's using his platform to inspire change. Whether it's through his business, his coaching, or his podcast, Benny is all about making a difference. So get comfortable and let's flip the lid with the one and only Benny Fisher. Enjoy. Welcome back to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now, and we do jump into the real raw conversations, the things that aren't just the highlight reels. My buddy Benny Fisher today fits the bill perfectly, and his level of vulnerability, his authenticity as a husband, as a father, as a businessman is just incredible. He's somebody who has been to some of the darkest places in his own personal journey and is in a process of continuing to heal and improve and impact others. He's also got a ton of external success and just did the opening keynote at the EOS conference not long ago in front of 2,200 people and brought them all to tears with the power of his story. So I can't wait to flip open the lid and jump in today with you, my friend. How are you?
Great, man. Thanks for having me this morning. It's a great studio.
Well, and that's how we started the last recording when the studio shut down 5 minutes in and we had to just start over. So
yeah, that's just all the stuff. I'm talking like the aura, the essence, seeing where you get to work, seeing your, where I see you on Zoom a lot, seeing your backyard set up. I think it's beautiful. I think it's like you have your own little oasis here.
Thank you.
And I can definitely see why it brings you energy to live here.
Dude, and as I was saying to you earlier, I've really set up my life to be able to live the life that I want to live, right? And prioritizing being a husband and a father first, which is how I operate. So it's been great. I'm happy to have you here. I wish I would have been able to join you guys last night. That would have been a really good time. I know you guys had a great meeting. So, dude, the only question I ask the same to every guest, and I already asked you this, but we're going to ask it again. Who are you in your words?
Oh, I am an inspiring, authentic leader. I'm consistent, I'm loving, and I just want to connect everybody together.
What does that mean to you? Connecting everybody together?
I believe it's one of my gifts. I believe it's one of your gifts as well. And that's why I think me and you bond so well. But I just believe that I have the ability to see people and remember their stories and remember what they do and how they can help. Not necessarily me, because there's there's a lot of things I probably need help with, but it's like not like everybody's cup of not everybody's for me, right? Like I might not, if I needed a video guy, for instance, like you're not going to come do video for me,
no,
right?
I can barely do it for myself,
right? But I have this way of like, if I met a video guy, like I could meet a video guy 2 years from now. I could see you like a year from now and be like, I need a video guy in Phoenix or something like, oh, I got a guy. Yeah. And I just have this amazing ability to be able to connect good souls together. And I think that's big because it takes so long for most of us to figure out whether people are good or not. But I think through all the pain that I've experienced in my life, I'm able to maybe see into the soul a little bit more. And being able to see their heart and their intentions. And then I'm able to like take all the good and just kind of connect all the dots as fast as possible. Yeah. I think that collectiveness is very powerful.
Yeah. I often describe one of the ways that I see people through the lens of I feel and sense where their pain is. I can sense and feel where their level of protection is. But through all of that, I objectively and non-judgmentally see their power and their potential as well, which is ultimately what you're saying. I can see their heart. I can see their good through all whatever the external chaos and noise is. You also said something that's really interesting. We don't always know right away whether or not they're actually good. We may not know for a little while. Give me a little bit of perspective into a time in your life when you believed someone was good and ultimately you ended up getting bit through the process.
So I have this, kind of like in America, like we have this, like, you're not guilty. You're innocent until proven guilty type thing. I have that. in my heart about people.
I agree.
And it's like, you have to, someone was asking me this the other day at dinner. They're like, cause I'm getting strangers together. Right. And they're like, how do you like pull this off? And how is it always magical? And I'm like, well, like I'll form a relationship with everybody. And until they do something to fracture that relationship, I'm going to see them for who they are. I mean, they could literally just got out of prison and committed the most heinous crimes ever in their past. But if I see them and like I see their heart and I see their intentions and I see that they're trying to do good things, I mean, like I'm gonna connect with them, and I'm gonna keep doing that until I believe that there's something maybe that could be like more malicious or maybe more like maybe not the right intent. And so to back the example, it actually didn't happen that long ago. Over the last couple of years, I was working with somebody who I really believed in. I really thought was a friend. I could see his heart. I knew he was trying to do some good things. I knew he had some blind spots. I've been known as the guy that thinks I can I guess maybe not fix people, but show people a better path. And I think, I believe in my heart that most people are inherently good. They just have a lot of trauma and a lot of things that happen, a lot of trash, right? That happens in their life. And so I always, for some reason, think I'm the guy that can help take their trash out a little bit, to use some of your language. And this gentleman, I was working with him, and we had a business relationship going for about a year. And then I think some things happened to him in his life, in his business, to where all of a sudden he kept telling me our quality of work wasn't good. We weren't doing a good job. And then he ended up stiffing me for $25,000. And I kind of saw behind the scenes anyway of like the relationship when it was a working relationship. But I was like, wow, this isn't like, even 6 months before all this happened, I saw the writing on the wall, right? But I signed a contract with him to provide services for him. And I'm like, I'm a man of my word, I'm going to deliver, and if things aren't perfect, we're still going to solve issues and solve, because I always tell people when they work with me, whether it's speaking, coaching, media, whatever it is, like, hey, if something gets screwed up, like we'll make it right. I mean, that's the whole reason that you hire me. Same thing with my roofing company. It's the same exact premise. But yeah, and eventually he just showed his true colors, and it's sad, because like, I still pray for him, and I still like hope that he will maybe see how he is in relationships. And because I think what happens, and I've seen this happen in my own life, you can burn bridges a little bit along the way. And if you're not careful, you'll be as lonely as you feel probably on the inside, like actually lonely. Yeah. And so that was one example that's happened recently.
Well, I think it's a powerful example. I know that for myself, right, because I care so much about other people and because I do see the good, one of the patterns that I struggled with historically is my inability to hold people in an effective boundary and hold a level of accountability. It's what led to some of the business losses I had a couple of years ago. I wanted so much for the other people and I saw the good, but I didn't, even after seeing the patterns, make the course corrections fast enough because I still wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. You are somebody who I feel like gives so abundantly, and I see it happen across the board. And you're also somebody that, because you feel like you can save everybody, have put yourself into many situations where you want more for the people than they maybe want for themselves. How have you been able to effectively navigate those boundaries to ultimately protect yourself and not expose yourself to levels of extortion or manipulation?
So I got a lot of practice in actually having a, what I call a real business, like with employees and like actual, because we're in this world now with all these influencers and speakers and coaches and things like that. And sometimes I'm like, do you guys ever actually build something, And like, so I've got a lot of practice hiring people, firing people. And it's through the EOS system, right? The book Traction, Rocket Fuel, that I've really been able to learn the skills in the process on actually how to have those effective conversations. Now it's taken me, I started my company almost 9 years ago, and I'm now just starting to get good at that. And then also like, cause my first, 20 or 30 people, I thought they were going to just be with me forever, and I saw them as like there's so much potential, and I would never let them go because I saw more potential in them than they did in themselves. Yeah. But eventually, as I kept delegating and elevating and not was always as close to them or the business, then I realized that like, I'd get calls from the people running the company. They're like, oh, hey, so-and-so, man, like we gotta let them go. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, it was a tendency for me, like, no, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I hear myself, like this guy sees it too, that's running my company, that I trust to run the company in the best way possible. And he's telling me the same thing. And so like, what I've learned is like, it doesn't necessarily have to be goodbye. It just has to be sometimes see you later. And so like when we have to let someone go, not everyone has to be in the big fish ecosystem, right? I can still love them. I can still be friends with them. I can still help them get another job somewhere else because I do love them. But maybe right now in that season of their life, this isn't the best place for them. Maybe they need to go learn somewhere else, some skills, and hopefully, if the timing's right, if they want to enter back in, hopefully we can do that. If not, like I'm cheering people on. So because like I know I got, I had to go on my journey. I got fired so many times I can't even count.
Well, I mean, you and I were talking a little bit earlier too about some of the special needs that my kids have. And I also identify because I happen to have a lot of those same challenges that I've learned now through my kids. But you and I've talked more than once about ADHD and how you had ADHD. You do have ADHD, right? You get shiny object syndrome just like I do, right? In many cases. And in a lot of ways, when we were growing up, that wasn't really understood. Right? It wasn't really looked at through a lens of a benefit or a gift or a power or how it could be utilized. And I think in a lot of cases, it also can lead to a lot of situations where we become either misunderstood or otherwise. So could you take us back to like the concept of when you started to discover that you were different? You implied that others have always known you're different. When did you realize it? And what was the role, if you're consciously aware of it, that ADHD maybe played in your development and who you are today?
So I wasn't ever really aware of it until I was aware that I had this thing called ADHD because that's what the doctor said. And, I remember they wanted to put me on Ritalin, but my mom was afraid for me to take drugs. She didn't know anything. She grew up on a farm. So she's like, he's not going to take those drugs. And this was kind of probably a newer, the more I look back now, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've really started to study, the whole concept, and I guess the diagnosis didn't even become a thing until the late 80s.
It didn't.
And so like, I was born in 81. So by the time I was 7, it was 88. And I was like, oh yeah, we got this new thing. And what do they call that? The what is that journal, the medical journal, the DDSM?
Oh, DSM-5
or whatever.
DSM-5 I think is there's a more recent one now. Yes.
I
know exactly what you're talking about. Journal. It's a psychological diagnosis
and
journal.
And they're like, oh yeah, we can put this label on like people, right? And so they started with kids that are like, their guidance counselors at school are like, flipping them to other therapists and, doctors. I mean, I remember doing all the tests, all the studying. I mean, they put me in a class with kids that had learning disabilities for reading. Like I remember I was like in like this chapter reading thing. Like I had to go to a special thing to read. And I'm thinking like I don't need to be in here. I'm literally like hanging out. The bright side of that though is I had a lot more empathy for those kids with special, 100%. What I call real special needs. Sure, we can all say we have special needs because we're all special, but I remember hanging out with the kids with Down syndrome. Yeah. I remember I just was like, oh my gosh, they're just so sweet. Their heart is so pure. And, but I didn't consciously know how that was really affecting my life. I just knew that I was different on the inside. I knew that, I couldn't clearly articulate the vision that was in my head. I knew that, people didn't understand me. My parents didn't really understand me. The teachers definitely didn't understand me. Kids would come and go, I would get bullied a little bit. I would try to be friends with everyone, just trying to, find my path. But as I studied that the last 3 years, I've realized that there was a lot of moments in my life that made me who I am today. And so I wouldn't change one bit of it because yes, I still have it and it's still a label, I guess, but, I'm able to manage it without drugs, without, I'm able to just manage it. And so when you say, do I get shiny object syndrome? I'm actually telling you now at the place where I'm at now, it's it definitely happens, but here's the thing. I'm back here in the head, where everything comes fast. And then for most of us, it just shoots to the front of the forehead and then we start acting or talking. I've now been able to slow that down, just through being more present to where now it's not the same as it used to be. Sure, does it still happen? It's just, once it comes back here, it takes a while for it to come to the forefront, because I've learned skills, right? Through therapy, meditation, even ELS, right? Like having core focus, right? Having your values, knowing who you are, knowing thyself. And when I see something that doesn't necessarily align, we're back in the old days. I remember like when I was selling drugs, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to help all these people. They like me. I'm like the life of the party. I'm going to sell it. There was not one part of like that the slowdown process said, this might not be a good idea.
Right.
Well, now, like, say that, like, it'd be like, heck, like, it's easier to say no. Like, it's much more easier to say no. Gino Wickman's new book, Shine, there's the 10 disciplines for maximizing energy. One of them is know thyself. One of them is say no often. And so, he's kind of figured this out of what makes how you can maximize impact, because most of us entrepreneurs can make a lot of impact.
Yep.
Some's good impact, some's bad impact, but we're making impact, right? Because we're driven, right? And Dr. Douglas Brackman's book, have you the book Driven? Oh, you got to read that book, Driven. Oh, that book Driven is a game changer.
I have not read that one.
Oh, that book Driven is going to be a game changer for you. It just explains how we're wired and how there's like two genes, like the DD2 and the DD4. I don't see that. I'm not the scientist guy, right? I'm just the people guy. But all I know is those things affect our drive, right? And so we make impact for good or evil, right? But then Gino is all about like, how can you have impact and then also have peace at the same time? And that's a lot of, I think, what escapes most entrepreneurs is the peace side of things. Yeah. And like the flow and the energy. Because I was just with the guy yesterday. I mean, big company. I mean, he's driven. I mean, he's killing it. Ain't no stopping him. Like, he is on a mission. I don't know how peaceful he is. Like
I would suggest that many of the top performers are not. Right. And it's because also look at just even the narratives, and mine was the same, right? Mine used to be stress equals growth. The more stress, the more I did, the more I had on my plate, the more my capacity would grow, the more I had everything. But then when studying high performers, right, looking at intermittent and peak performers, or intermittent and sustained peak performers across multiple different industries, the singular difference between the two of them was that the sustained peak performers, the ones that have lasted for decades, are the ones that treated rest and recovery as important as their training. But in our world today, and in the hustle culture nature of everything, it's build, 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 fast, 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 don't rest, don't break, push through it. It's all about that push element versus finding the flow.
Well, yeah. And, again, we have these awesome examples of like driven entrepreneurs that do massive things, but we only have like a handful. Like we have like, your Elon Musk, your Steve Jobs, your Jeff Bezos.
Yep.
Those guys get put on a big pedestal, and rightfully so. They build amazing companies, but you don't hear about the thousands and thousands of drivens that have died young.
That's exactly right.
Because of
heart attack, stress, anxiety, drug overdose.
Alcohol,
all of it.
Just suicide. I mean, like, nobody talks about those guys, right? And so what happens is, I believe the drivens feel like, well, if I'm not Elon Musk, like, I must be a failure.
It's the comparison game.
And so that's... Yeah, and so now I'm on a mission to really find more of these driven human beings that are wired like that are just probably misaligned right now. And I'm trying to figure out how to help them manage that, so then that way they can stay alive, so that way they can help change the world, because they want to.
Yeah.
And we need them actually to change the world, because that one driven person is going to be able to lead hundreds and thousands of people. And all you got to do is got to find a few of them to actually do some good things in the world.
That's why at our retreats, and so much of our focus, even in the work that we do with others, is helping entrepreneurs understand the importance of nervous system regulation, right? Our nervous systems are designed to keep us safe. They're literally hardwired to anticipate risk and threat, which in our world today is all misnomer anyway, right? Like it's all perception. And so nervous system regulation is that foundation for everything else: functional movement, executive functioning, like thought and connection, all of it. But yet, the world that we're in, on the push. And again, I fit into it myself, brother, because of what happened and the way that I needed to, and all of the shame that impacted my life and the narratives that wrapped into them. But I was also a high performer that learned to receive love, validation, and connection through performance. So it was always contingent upon what I did, which meant that I couldn't not be doing, right? And I find that that's also the other side for many people that are in this driven category, is they've learned to receive love, validation, and connection through performance. You said it best in your childhood. Nobody understood you.
Nobody.
Even your parents.
Yeah. Actually,
you were put into a group with an assumption that you had a learning disability, right? Because of an ADHD qualification and diagnosis that wasn't really understood. By the way, I think ADHD is also a fucking superpower for entrepreneurs.
It is a superpower.
Right?
Once they know how to manage
Correct.
the blind spots, right?
Because the other thing about ADHD is you can also go hyper focus, right? So when you're interested, you're passionate, you're connected, it's all aligned.
Yeah.
Like hyper focus, stay the fuck out of my way, right?
Yeah.
Like it is a superpower. But when nobody understands you, what do you start to do? You start to believe that nobody's going to see you, nobody's going to understand you, nobody's going to want to be connected with you, right? And we start anticipating and protecting ourselves.
Well, I think you realize too, like that we need a lot of help.
Yeah.
Because we are so, we have so many blind spots and we have so many challenges, right? We have a lot of superpowers, but all my blind spots, like I have integrators everywhere. You know, I got my wife takes care of the house and the kids. I got a business partner at Big Fish Contracting that basically shepherds the sheep over there and helps implement everything. I try to just like latch on with people that can actually complement me.
Yeah.
But back when I was a kid, you know, and the other thing is, you know, my parents were in survival mode. I mean, like my mom and dad got divorced when I was 5. They both got remarried when I was like 7 or 8. You know, I never seen anybody make over $100,000 a year. We probably went from lower middle class to like middle class by the time I was in high school. So there was a lot of, you know, lack of resources. People were working all the time. And so I don't blame them at all. I'm just aware that like, you know, I'm very present now, and I'm thinking I'm able to give my children, you know, maybe a head start, but only because I went through all this to be able to slow down, to be able to create these teams of people to be able to help me so that I could be more present with my kid. And so if they are like, just like you are, like if your kids have, both your kids have special needs, right? And so, but you're able to, because of all the hard work and pain and suffering that you went through the last 40 years of your life.
Yep.
I don't even know how old you are. How old are you?
I'm 38.
38. So 38 years old. So he's not the big 40 yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, see, like, that's what I mean. So you're through that though, you're going to be able to give them,
there's no doubt,
the presence, you know, and I don't know a lot about like how you grew up with your mom and dad, but if your mom and dad's grinding every day to like put food on the table and you have a special need, like, you're like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, and there's nothing, like, it's not like it's wrong. It just is.
It just is.
The other thing that you mentioned, the entrepreneurs, you know, we feel like we got to do, right? Do, have, and then be, you know, that's like a thing. And I'm starting to learn, and I'm trying to figure this out because I haven't figured it out yet at all. It's how to be first. And then I think it's like be, have, do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be, have, do.
I will tell you that was one of my biggest shifts. And that is where I would tell you that I've settled strong, but I'm still improving. But I have realized, absolutely no questions asked, that the more I can be, the more I am. Period. Right? The doing takes away from the being. The being actually can manifest and create the having and the doing. It's just like when I chased all the what's in the world. I had the house, what car, what amount of money. I had all the what's, but it cost me who I was because I wasn't aligned. I was doing it for the external reason, which was also the same thing with like the misnomer with do versus be. But when we can be, like, I'm a big believer, and I've said this now for about 18 months for myself, but I think it's true for all of us. My presence is my present. I am the gift. I think that's true for all of us. But if you think about all the ways that we protect ourselves as well, right? The past is diluted in the way that we remember it. It's often a shade of accurate. The future is almost always fabricated. But the only thing fucking real is what's right in front of us. You and me sitting here right now. This is the only thing real that's existing in this moment, right? If we're 5 minutes ahead or 5 minutes behind, if I'm still stuck on the tech stuff from 45 minutes ago, I can't be here present with you now. So presence, I think, is the concept of being, but it's also allowing yourself to recognize, like, what does being mean for you? Being doesn't mean sitting absolutely still in meditation, right? It can mean in movement. It can mean expression of creativity. It can mean in conversations and relationships. It's about, are you here right now? I would suggest that you're a highly present person. Why is it that you believe that you're still struggling to be?
Because I'm still trying to provide external resources, I guess, for those around me, because I think that's what they want, even though I know that that's not true. So like, I'm just, I want to provide more for my family. I want to provide more for my team. I want to provide more opportunities for people. And because I feel like I have this gift, I have to do, right? And so, but I do believe, I'm more present than ever before. And so I'm, and then that comparison creature catches in, right? Like where I'm in the home service, improvement business, right? Where, if you're not scaling to $100 million, right, like, you're just a little, chump. And it's like, all right, there's nothing wrong with having like a nice little solid $2 million business, $10 million business, whatever.
Nothing wrong if it aligns for you.
If it aligns for you, right? And so I'm on a mission to really help people just design their life, however they want their life to be. They want that $100 million business. True. Let's give you the blueprint on how to do that. If you want the $5 million, because it's not really about the money. It's what the money and the team and the resources will be able to provide you.
I agree.
To be able to do, create that space. My 5 lessons in the pain and to presence, lesson 3 is the systems and the support create the space for healing. Mm-hmm. And I believe that you have to create space to be able to heal. And the only way to do that is to connect with others, to have them help you with your mission so you can help them with their mission. Yep. But most of us aren't really aware yet of what our mission really is because we haven't really figured out who we are and what our purpose is.
So the systems are required to create space for healing. What's also interesting is that when you heal, you actually create capacity and space within you. Right. I'm often a believer that like we can't create more time, but we can learn to bend and manipulate it. And the less we're carrying with us that's no longer serving us, the more energy, the more capacity, the more focus, and the more presence that we can have. You say that your challenge to not be able to be fully is because you still have this concept and belief that you need to provide for your loved ones and provide opportunity and all of those things. So what I want to just slow down on is if you're helping people design their lives, what does your life by design look like? Where are you headed? And what is most important to you?
So I feel like, you want me to start with where I'm at now or where I'm going?
Freestyle, whatever you want, bro.
So let's start with where I'm going. Where I want to be in 10 years is a taste of like kind of what I experienced 2 weeks ago when I was at the EOS conference. I'd like to do 12 of those engagements a year, like once a month at a really cool resort or a town, warm weather, right? I live in Pittsburgh and I've always lived in the Midwest. So it's always been a little gloomy. And I do realize that I have a gift to be able to move people at masses, and the only way to do that is, through where other people can get big groups of people together. And so if I could do that 12 times a year, be able to fly and bring my family. That's really important to me. I had my family with me. They were at the resort. They got to stay at they went to the San Diego Zoo every day. I love it. It was awesome. And so like, that's because I love being around 2,300 people. Like I love it. Where some people are like, man, like I'll go up and do my talk, but then I'm like going back to the hotel, right? Our buddy Steve Sims, he's very introverted, right? Mm-hmm. He'll go up and kill it on stage. He's like, don't talk to me the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, like legitimately.
Yeah, and so and that's okay, and that's great for him. I love the people. Like I'd much rather be at the conference with 2,000 people than at the San Diego Zoo. That's just, I love the zoo. I guess the conference is my zoo. Right? In the nicest way possible.
There's a bunch of animals there for sure.
Well, a bunch of humans, and you can pet them, you can hug them, you can touch them, you can feel them, you can see the sharks, you can see like and so.
You like the experiential stuff, like scratch and sniff stickers. Like that's everything.
Yeah, like I want to be in person. I want to get back from this COVID thing. I was great for a lot of things, but I need to be in doing this. Like I only shoot my podcast now in person. Yeah. Like I don't do any more Zoom podcasts. I love it. And just because I want to, so I cut back on the quantity. And guess what else? They give me more space, right? I didn't have to put out an episode every week. Mm-hmm. So I went to every other week. So that's part of my goal is to, maybe 1 week a month, 12 times a year to go to a cool resort, big conference, pour out, impact, have my family with me, get to try a new experience. I love the podcast. I believe that, unless I'm called to do something different, I'll probably always do that as my passion project. I love interviewing other people. I love people being able to share their story, because I'll never forget how powerful it was for me to share my story for the first time, and the healing that allowed me to do. So if I can create that avenue and that path for someone else, part of me also, I love retreats. Like I love the fact that you do retreats and things like that. And I've experienced, tons of, I keep trying different ones just to kind of see what's out there. And then what I would like to do is I would like to maybe have my own retreat for a little while. And the only reason to do that is kind of to perfect a process or a flow. So then that way I could teach other visionaries on how to create their own retreats, because I believe in 10 years from now that we're going to create connection more than ever. And I believe that it's the visionary's responsibility to create connection with his leadership team, his family, his employees, and his community. And the one way that he's going to be able to do that, or she, is going to be through experiential types of, we call them retreats, but a retreat can be anything you want it to be, as long as people are being gathered together for, I believe, at least 2 days, so that way they can be present, because it takes, for most of you guys, it takes you a day just to
unwind,
even just be, right? So you almost need a 3-day retreat, because, that day in the middle is going to be the actual power day. And so, but to be able to teach, other entrepreneurs on how to build a community, right? Because some people are so busy doing and head down, lasered, focused in, that hyper focus, which is great. And they're building massive businesses and awesome, they're creating wealth for themselves. But sometimes they don't build community at the same time, because it takes another level of energy, right?
It does.
And it takes another level of skill set, to go from doer to just shepherd. And so I would like to help people learn how to put their own retreats on. So I'd love to help, part of my goal is to help 100 entrepreneurs to be able to lead their own world-class retreats. And so how am I going to get there? I have no idea, because I've done some of my own workshops before.
But you've never run a retreat yet.
I've never run a retreat yet. Not a real retreat, the kind that I want to do, kind of that you kind of do. And so I've never done that yet. And so now what I'm doing, so that's the future, right? That's what the 10 years looks like. Plus, I also believe that's going to allow me to go to some really cool places and experience the world in a different way. So it's going to be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, because my wife, she wants to see the world.
Yeah.
I mean, she wants to she wants to go to Africa and be in the field and see the children and the animals. And I'm like, all right, well, how do I get her there that it's just not a vacation, but I can also make an impact, and still give her what she wants. Right. So our visions are aligned. But right now, I'm in Phoenix right now because I'm hosting a marketing workshop for roofing contractors. So I got 100 entrepreneurs in a room. They're coming because they need more leads, right? And they need to build a brand. Sure. So we sell them what they want, but we give them what they need. And so they're going to hear my story and how, what my life looks like now. Right. And I still have a successful contracting company, but I don't have to be the one doing it all the time. So that's the first step to open their mind. Right. And I believe we also started a contractor mastermind. And again, 100 entrepreneurs in that. And so, and then me speaking at conferences and events, so people are following the message, right? They're following me. And eventually there's going to be 100 this 10 years from now that are going to come to one of my events. And then when they're going to come to one of my events, maybe they come to 2, and then it's all right, cool. Maybe I can create a course. Maybe I can create, maybe they help me with my event. And then I'm all right, now you're not going to do it exactly like I do, because you got to go try a bunch of different stuff. Yeah. I've been to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power. I've been to a lot of different cool retreats. I've been to the Art of Living Institute, where it's all meditation and spiritual stuff. And, take a little bit of everything, find the humans out there that can deliver it, because you're not the one doing it. You're just the one hosting.
Yep.
You're the one that brings the people, provides the space, and then you're hiring the experts to work with your people, right? Because we're visionaries. We don't know how to do all that stuff. You know what I mean? So but you got to connect with these people. You got to figure out what you're going to love. And so I think that's what I'm doing. I don't have it laid out every 90 days, this has to happen. It's just kind of the more I speak about it, the more empowering it becomes. The more I get the message out, somebody could be listening and be oh, I like that. How do I get started? I'm well, we got no retreats. Maybe we'll have to come to Brian's retreat first, you know what I mean? And get some reps in. And then it's all right, cool. Now I'm going to get, 12 of my people together. I think, we're having I'm having a meetup in New York City on next week.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be there. Me and my buddy Joe are going to go there. We have dinner with Gary Vee on Monday night. And we're hey, we're already in New York. Why don't we just put something out to our contractors in our mastermind? Say, hey, let's rent some a WeWork space. Let's go to the boardroom. We'll call it the boardroom. I got 9 people showing up for that. So it's already happening. It's just not in retreat style, because a lot of people aren't ready for the woo-woo stuff yet. But we're slowly shifting their mind into that, the connection's so much more powerful. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now, and that's where I want to go. That was a long answer.
It was, and I like the answer. I want to bring that back just for a second to even this concept of you feel the need to provide even more for your family. So in this nature of like, yeah, I don't need to have $100 million roofing contracting business. A 10 million could be good. It could align. It is what I want, right? Where does providing for your family align with all of that as it relates to your future vision?
Well, everyone's well taken care of now.
Okay.
I can tell you that. No one's starving. You know what I mean? It's not the way we grew up. But yeah, I mean, like I do so much. I have so much of an. I do so much for the world now as it is. Sometimes I feel like I don't do enough at home. Like I don't create like. It's not Disney World at home all the time, you know? And sometimes it's like, all right, I want to make that Disney World first almost. But how do I do that, right? Like, you know, I'd love to build our own house on, you know, probably 5 acres of land so we could host our own retreats at our house and start there, right? And so, you know, that takes resources, right? That takes cash, takes money. You know, and so there's a couple of different ways to get money. You can get money from your business. People can pay you to do other things, you know, provide services, exchange dollars, take those dollars, invest in your family. And if I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Need a retreat center anyway, you know, like, and so like, those are the things that like are kind of like on the vision board. And so, yeah, I just have to create more impact. Right. And so like, that's why I travel. I mean, that's why I'm here in Phoenix, you know, I was supposed to I'm doing this marketing. I could have just came down for the marketing workshop. Could have came in on Wednesday night. I could have left Friday morning, but I'm like, you know what? Like it's very rare that I get to be going to a cool town. Cause like, I knew that there was a bunch of, like, I have like 5 podcasts I'm shooting. You're one of them. We're doing it next. And it's like, yeah. So I came in 3 days early, brought the media team in. Like we're going to go on a little media blitz. Cause I watch guys like, you know, I like Dan Martell. I don't know if you follow Dan, Buy Back Your Time. It's kind of what he does. He gets a speaking engagement, puts it on Facebook, like, hey, I'm going to be in Nashville. I just watched him do the other day. I'm going to be in Nashville. Who's got a podcast? I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like he's doing the guesting, you know, which is great. And I'm like, all right, well, I still want to be the host.
You can do it on the host or the guest side.
Yeah. And so like, you know, then I'll go home and I'll be home for 3 weeks and I'll be as present as can be. And so you can kind of manipulate time a little bit because I am being very present, but that whole fact that you can get in a plane and can be somewhere and then schedule because I don't have anything else going on. I literally just have to sit here and hold space for the people in front of me. I don't have to worry about the cameras. I don't have to worry about anything else except for just being here and delivering value and making sure that it's genuine connection. I believe if you do that enough, that major awesome things are going to happen. It's just not, my mind's still wired like the old school way sometimes. It's a tendency, right? It's like, it's not happening fast enough. Oh, I got to do more, right? It's like that. Like, but I feel it. I'm aware of it now.
Well, I mean, and I feel that in you. And that's part of the reason I was asking that question, right? I want to bring you back to elements of your story, and then we're going to come full circle to this because I think this is important. But you know, we've gotten this far into the conversation, which has been great, and we've really talked very little about your story, which is 100% because that's not where I asked the questions. But you have talked about your ability to see other people because of what you've been through. You've talked about the trauma that you experienced. You've talked about these moments where you lost yourself and you had to kind of reclaim. You also referenced earlier that your mom didn't want to put you on Ritalin because she didn't want to get you all mixed up into drugs, and then you became a drug dealer, right? So like,
and a drug addict,
right?
Yeah, I should have died of a fentanyl overdose in 2017.
So take us back before that, because we're gonna definitely get there. What was the path in your childhood that led you down the path? I didn't mean to say the dark path, right? Because I do believe that you, and this is one of the pieces of clips that we missed in the first 5 minutes of the first interview, this idea that you've always been a light. I believe that you are a light. You've always been a light, but we can be a light and still exist in dark places. And so what walked you down that path?
I think it was this need for approval, right? And acceptance. And so after I got out of high school, you know, college wasn't for me. I tried it for a couple of weeks and I saw an ad for, you know, you can make $100,000 selling cars. And so I went to the car world and learned some sales skills, and I got fired from every single car job. You know, I'd do good for 6 months and I'd, you know, just not do anything, you know, because I thought I was rich and I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to work. And then the managers didn't have really great emotional intelligence. And there was not a lot of mentoring or like actually, like, you know, and I was 18 when I started selling cars. And so to be around like 40-year-old guys, you know what I mean? Like doing like 40-year-old guy stuff, I was like opened up to another world. I looked up to those guys, and those guys weren't always doing everything, you know, like that they maybe should have, you know? I then tried a couple other corporate, because I thought that was the only way to success was having like a corporate job, or like, because I didn't know anything about small business. That was the path, right? Go to college, get a degree, get a job in corporate America.
Yep.
Make your 150 grand a year, dude. And like, that's it. Like, and then retire when you're 60. Like, that was all there was.
Yeah.
That's all I saw. And I went and worked at GE Money. I did home loans. I worked at Verizon, sold BlackBerries at the mall. And one time I was at a party and I was like 26 years old. I was late to the drug game, 26, because I was always afraid of drugs. I'm like, drugs are going to kill you. Drugs are bad. I went to all the DARE stuff when I was in school. And got a little tipsy, was drinking a little bit, tried cocaine for the first time. And for the first time in my life, I felt like everything stopped around me. It was like I was present. And I really enjoyed that. And I was like, whoa. And of course, me having the gift of gab, I went and told everybody. I'm like, dude, you gotta try this. This is so cool. Yeah. Thinking everybody's wired like me.
Yeah.
Well, when they would try it, they were freaking bouncing off the walls and doing all this. And it actually slowed me down. It did the reverse effect.
I have to pause you real quick and point this out. That's why stimulant medications for ADHD people actually can be effective, because there's a deficiency in the brain that with the brain scan can show it. And cocaine and caffeine and stimulants actually give you more access to that calming nature because of how we're wired. So I say this, I know this because of my son, right? He is on stimulant medication, his choice based on neurofeedback and all of what led down to it. But we have more access to our son. He's actually less bouncing off the walls. So there's science that supports what you just said, because when we are hardwired ADHD, it actually brings us down and calm and present, when you just said everyone else is bouncing off the walls as a result of it. Yeah. So it's like you found your medication and you're like, wow, this is cool.
And so then, people wanted the nightclubs, because like everyone else, all the regular, I'll call it the non-driven, they do it to speed up, right? Because they want it to be like the life of the party and they want to get more amped up. And I'd just be sitting in the corner watching everybody, just be like, oh, wow, they're all funny. And I got acceptance in that world. For the first time, people needed what I had, and it felt good. And even though it was like, I was looking for love in all the wrong places, and I was really bad at selling drugs. One time I got robbed at gunpoint, because I went looking for drugs in all the wrong places and left for dead, literally should have been killed. Talked myself out of getting killed. My car got stolen. Eventually, 3 years later, the cops raided my house, and the FBI and the sheriff, and there was so that happened, and that you would think that that was like getting hit in the head with a 2x4. You would have thought though, getting robbed at gunpoint, left for dead, pistol whipped,
might have been a wake up call, but
but you know what? I didn't have any other option, no other future. Right. I was like, what am I going to do? My resume sucks. Yeah. I'm like, what else am I going to do? And so I just kept doing it until then, the cops came, and then I had to go move in with my sister, live in her basement, which was very humbling, and got back into church because I always grew up in a Baptist church. So I was always close with God, and almost used God as like when things are good, God's great. When things are bad, I was not calling out to his name. And then my uncle calls me up and says, hey, I started this commercial roofing company in Pittsburgh. Would love for you to come over and help me with sales and marketing. I know you're a good kid. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I got these 2 felonies on my account. I was working at this call center making like $9 an hour. This is in 2009.
I don't remember. Did you serve any time?
No. Okay. I got spared because I didn't have a record. I literally had a clean record. I started going to church right away. I got involved in the community. I was doing community service at the church. My pastor wrote some letters, I had a good family, I probably wouldn't have done well in prison. So luckily I was spared. I did get the house arrest for like 60 days. Okay. Did everything perfect. Probation was perfect. They'd come and check your fridge for alcohol. Listen, I know how to follow rules when I have to, right? Like I followed enough of them. That's why I wanted to venture out and try a bunch of different stuff. And so, and then I moved to Pittsburgh. Didn't know a single person. Worked for my uncle's roofing company for 5 years. Ended up getting married, 2012. This is the 2010. I moved to Pittsburgh. I think I got married in 2012 or 2013. Had a kid. 2014, my uncle calls me up and says, hey, I need you to, I was getting ready to go on vacation. First vacation I was going to take my family on. I just bought a house. It was a nice small house. So proud that I was able to buy a house. got my felony expunged a couple of years later, but like I didn't care. Like I was in a small business. I'm serving my uncle. I'm in the community. I was learning. It was so fun. Like I was helping businesses with their Facebook page, because I was listening to Gary Vee the whole time. I'm like, because I got bored with the whole roofing thing. So I was doing everything else but roofing. Well, my uncle didn't really like that because, he thought I should probably be doing more roofing work. So he calls me up and said, I need you to stay behind at a job site. The project's going bad. And I was like, no, we're getting ready to go on vacation. He's like, no, I need you to stay back. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm going on vacation. Like, I'm not going to be like you to where I'm not going to just send my family.
Yeah.
And he said, I think you should go sell roofs for someone else. And that was a tough moment. I was like someone that you loved, someone you looked up to, someone that believed in you. Like I literally moved over to Pittsburgh. I owed him $1,200 because he paid off my fines. I had a credit score of 520. I lived in a $300 apartment. He gave me a beat up work truck to drive. Like, I had nothing, and like now I had like some confidence about business. I mean, I still wasn't really making any money, but I didn't care. It wasn't about the money. It was just, I felt like I had a purpose. And that was all just taken away like that. And so I went on that vacation, and I dreamed up Big Fish Contracting. I'm like, all right. And so, cause I would always listen to Gary Vee in the voice, I didn't know personally, not like I do now, but I bought into the belief system of like that I could do it. I could build a brand, like customer service, take everything I learned about sales from my 20s, blend it with everything I knew about roofing for the last 5 years and small business, blend it with what I was learning about branding and marketing with Gary Vee, and I out-poofed the Big Fish Contracting Company with this cute little fish logo, and everybody thought I was nuts. Well, 2 years into business, like I never managed a human before. And so it was really hard. Like I started hiring people. I didn't know how to do it. Like I was trying to be a husband. I was trying to be a father. I was trying to be a business person. I was on the golf course. And somebody offered me a Percocet. Well, I knew what that was worth from back in, in my late 20s, and I'm like, and I had been drug free for five or 6 years. In 5 or 6 years, drug free. Took a Percocet. Then I wanted another one, but I was afraid to ask the old guy on the golf course because I was like, oh, he's going to think I'm a little, like he's just, passing them out because he's an old guy. Yeah. So then I get online, start buying drugs online. I'm starting to like do Percocet and Oxycontin, in the dark, right? In the shadows, like no one knows, right? And 2017, I did my normal little line. I dropped over dead in my office. My wife and my baby were downstairs. She was 3. One of my best friends was coming over that day to pick me up for a fantasy football draft. And he happened to walk in maybe 2 or 3 minutes on the mustache after I went down. I happened to live like this. And I bought this like for me at the time, it was like my dream home, big house, nice little neighborhood. It was 4 minutes from the hospital. Obviously he called 911. I had no idea what happened. Well, I guess the paramedics know what happened when 37-year-olds just dropped over. So they hit me with 2 shots of Narcan. I was in ICU for a couple of days, and that was a very eye-opening, rock bottom moment in my life again. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? I was still afraid to talk to anybody about it. Now, my immediate family knew, but I still, I didn't tell anybody at work. I just said, hey, I went into sugar shock. I was like, I'm not going to be at work for a month. And so I was really embarrassed by it, and I was trying to heal myself, and I was trying to like figure out like how to get better on my own. And I always thought it was like my businesses. At that point, I'm like, oh, it must be my business caused me too much stress. And so like I got a business coach, and I started learning some things like that, but I didn't really take care of me inside. And then COVID happens, and then I ended up getting a divorce, and that was tough because then I knew I wasn't going to have as much closeness with my child, my son. But we weren't present anyway. I mean, literally, I'd get home from work and we'd all be on our phones, and he'd just be playing by himself. And I'm like, well, maybe if I can get him every other weekend, a day during the week, like at least it's just going to be me and him. Yeah. Like I'm going to come and turn into super dad. And that's what I did. Then I met Brittany, and she was into mindfulness and health and wellness. And she started taking me down that path of stillness. And that's when things started to like open up for me. Actually, when I met Brittany, I was probably 385 pounds. She helped me lose like 75 pounds. Yeah. And then that's what I ran into rocket fuel and Gino Wickman's whole teachings. And I did all that in my business. And in 2021, right after I had installed a leadership team, thought my life was great. Me and Brittany are, having a good time of life. I was on the golf course again. And my sister called me and told me that my little brother had got shot and killed in the back of the head. And I'm like, man, here we go again. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And, it was a drug deal gone bad. he was 12 years younger than me. And I always knew that he looked up to me, you know, even though I was never, you know, by the time I moved to Pittsburgh, by the time he was like 17, 18. So I only spent like, I think he was 7 when I moved out of the house to begin with. So we never really spent a lot of time together. But I knew he looked up to the money, and like I'd always buy him cool pairs of Jordans and like stuff like that. And I had this sense of guilt that like he maybe tried to like go down my path. And then I was asking God, like, why am I still here? I should be dead. And why did you take him out? And it was at that moment that I realized that like I have a bigger calling. I have a bigger purpose. It's not just to be like this awesome CEO of like $100 million roofing company that I want to build. Because at the time, right before that, ELS, oh yeah, we're going to go to the moon. Like, I'm like, no, that's not my calling, I don't think. I said, and so I need to create more exposure, because the people that aren't trapped in addiction, like especially drug addiction, I mean, everyone's addicted to something. But like the people that don't understand drug addiction and alcohol and things like that, they just don't know. Like they don't know. And so like I got to try to figure out if I can somehow use a message to figure out how to get those people to help the other people that need help, and not just, you know, do the whole shame and blame and like make you feel it. Because then you get isolated and you start doing things in the dark, and, you know, the next thing you know, you get shot and killed. Like what? Like this, you know, and he had a little baby upstairs. I mean, it was an apartment, suburban neighborhood. And Gino writes the book EOS Life later that summer, or later that fall. And I read that book EOS Life, and I'm like, there's more to life than just business and success and money. And so that's when I started the podcast. And I started the podcast because, and I've heard your story so many times, that like you wanted to start helping other people because you kind of wanted to just not have to deal with yourself. So I started the podcast because like, all right.
I wasn't conscious to that at the time.
Yeah, I know, me too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just want to interview everybody else. I'm going to help everybody else. I'm going to get their story out, even though I knew I had a burning story inside of me. And I was afraid to tell my story. I thought everyone was going to leave me. I remember when I first met Brittany, though, I did tell her the whole story about my life, because I was actually trying to repel her away. I was like, dude, you do not want me. I am a damaged human being. And she just got closer and closer and closer. And I was like, for the first time in my life, someone loved me and accepted me for exactly who I was. Exactly. No shame, no guilt, no like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did those things. Like, and so I was like, that was a cool little morsel. And then I'm like, all right, I said, I got to figure out how to get my story out there. But like, I was worried that my leadership team was going to leave, or my employees were going to leave, my customers were who's going to want to do business with a drug addict, you know, or like, even though like I have, you know, 800 5-star reviews, my customers always get taken care of. No one's ever had a problem. You know what I mean? Like we take care of everything. I'm a good person. But I was just, you know, that's the story that you tell yourself, you know? And so I finally said, you know what, I got to share my story. And so I caught up with him, this guy I know that's a YouTuber in the roofing industry. He's got a big podcast, and his name's Dimitri Lipinski. And I said, I have this really amazing story. I've never shared it with anybody, but I believe that you're the guy that can help me tell my story. I just, you know, poured out everything that happened to me. And I said, he's like, oh yeah. He's like, I want you to come on my show. So I flew up to Minneapolis, did it in person. It was like a 2-hour podcast. And after I was over, like, you know, and again, we just recorded. It wasn't like it streamed. I might have streamed. I think he might have did stream it live, but maybe only 25 people watched the live version. But even me just telling it to another human being, I told it to a therapist, and I told it to some people one-on-one. I told my team right before that I was doing it, because I didn't want to like surprise anybody.
Yep.
And it just felt so good. And I actually started to heal myself the more times I share my story. Even right now, I'm even doing this. And again, I can almost talk about it with like no emotion now.
Well, I was actually going to tell you that, which is, keep going. I've got something I'm seeing I want to tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because part of it's like, you know, I've told the story so many times. The backstory, you know what I mean? Again, and that's just the backstory, right? That's just to give to you context, really. And when it's one-on-one, I can do that a lot of times without getting too, now when there's 2,300 people that get EOS, I mean, I was crying like a baby on stage. I mean, the whole audience was like, dude, you should have some Big Fish, like branded Kleenexes, like on every seat. And I was like, that's a good idea, actually. But yeah, and so like telling my story over and over again, and then speaking in front of more audiences, and people want to hear more of it. It's like, wow, it's like the completely reverse of what I had thought in my head. And now, after interviewing all these people, and I still can tell, right? People still have more. We all have even more story to share. It's just the parts that we let out, right? And so Yeah, I'm just on fire. I have like more purpose, and I believe that I'm just here to help more people just tell their story because I know that it's going to help heal the world.
What I was noticing and what I was going to tell you is you have told your story so many times that it almost becomes, and I'm the same way. I can have the same tendency that I just almost go through it in a chunked, like chronological order. And it's like, oh yeah, all this traumatic shit happened to me. I almost fucking died. My brother died. Like, I mean, you're literally just communicating all about it very matter of factly, right? Which is also a protectionary nature for us because we, to your point, it's like, yeah, I'm on stage and I'm raw and I'm vulnerable and I'm feeling all of it. Whereas I can really just go through it relatively quickly and give you guys the context that you need. It's interesting though that the more I've told my story, it's the same type of thing. Sometimes I have to slow down enough to let it breathe and let people actually feel it, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the stories that we share intellectually make sense, but it's also what did we have to go through in those moments that made it worthwhile, right? That allowed us to have the perspective, the motivation, the direction to kind of pull ourselves through it. So I want to pull you back a little bit. You wake up in the ambulance. You passed out dead. Your buddy saves you. You get a couple of shots to save your life and you're in the ICU. You wake up in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, correct?
Yeah. So I remember waking up and, well, kind of, there's a breathing bag over my head. There's a paramedic. And I'm like, and she's like, what did you take? What did you take? And it's crazy because like, I'm like, I feel trapped, you know, and I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I snorted that line and it must have been laced with something. It must have been laced with fentanyl. Cause I mean, everyone's heard this. Like, I mean, like I knew that was a possibility. I mean, I watched the news too.
Yeah.
But I was so addicted that like, I took that risk. Like, even though I knew,
Yep.
people were like, how do you know? Like, why would you do that if you know? Well, that's how big of a problem. Like, if it can happen to me, it definitely can happen.
Can we also be really honest though in this moment? There's also a level of like, I don't care.
Oh, yeah,
because when you're that addicted, you're numbing, you're avoiding, you're wanting to escape the pain. And the reality of it is that I used to say this and it was done in different rights, but it's like I had to push the limits of death just to feel alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I was not okay. I can tell you that. I was relieved when I woke up. So like, I that was quick. I woke up. What did you take? I'm like, I'm gonna go. Like say it out and pass back out. I remember waking up in ICU, and my wife at the time was there. Her mom was there. My mom was there. My stepdad was there, and everyone was just staring at me like they're just in disbelief.
What's going through your mind at that moment?
Shame, despair, embarrassed, but then relief. I was like, oh, finally I can get help. Because I didn't know how to ask for help. You know, as a tough guy, alpha male, trying to take care of everybody. Like, I'm the one helping everybody. Like, no one helps me. Like, you know, like, no. Like, I mean, I was afraid to walk. I knew I had a problem. I mean, I was afraid to walk into a clinic because, like, I was afraid people would see me. Like, I had billboards up, you know. like I'm a upstanding businessman in society. Like, you know, like, I can't have a drug problem. Like, no one can know about this. And it was relief, you know, but then I will still say, as much as, you know, those people loved me that were in front of me, they still didn't know how to help me because they didn't understand because they had never been, not one of them in front of me had ever been addicted to a drug ever. So like nobody got me.
Which was no different than your entire
life. No different than my entire life. 8 years old. I'm like, I'm out here alone again. Like, yeah, even though there's people around me, lots of people, still feel super alone. And then it's like, who am I going to share that with? Like, I don't even have anybody to share it with. Like, you know, and it's just like, yeah, do better, Ben. Do better. Like, oh, I can't believe you did this again. When's enough, Ben? When are you going to learn? Those are the voices that I hear in my head, right? The voices I heard my whole life. And
whose voices were they?
A collective of all the people. You know, it's like, you know, your parents, teachers, the bullies, the collective of like, you know, all of the negative of people telling you what you couldn't do, what you could, you know, like people put you into a box based on their own fears and insecurities, right? And so it's just like you hear all that, and it's just like, yeah, it sounds miserable. Like that inner voice was awful.
Yeah.
And so then, because it's loud, and like you end up believing that, and then you start to be that. Like you literally do the exact like what they tell you. Like it's almost like it's like they manifest. It's like everyone manifests that, and and I start acting like that person. It's kind of like, so I read the book Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Have you read that one yet? All right. And so that talks about like how you can like, manifest awesomeness, right? Well, I believe that you can manifest like the bad too. And
you absolutely can.
And so like, it's the same skill. Most of us actually are doing that just based on what's fed into our brains.
That's what we call the trash from people's past. I mean, it's literally the emotional triggers, behavioral patterns, and environmental conditioning that create a set of beliefs intellectually and emotionally that our lives only further validate from that point forward, which is why most people can't escape it. Right. And it's only when it's actually brought to a place of conscious awareness that you start to be able to actually like wrestle with it. But you and I have talked about this other side of it as well. You had a couple of near-death experiences. This was one of them. Right. And you reach a point where you end up having a really healthy relationship with mortality, which actually creates more freedom in this current life. Right. So you're sitting here, you're sitting in the hospital bed, you feel the sense of relief, like, okay, at least my secret's out and I have people around me and I can hopefully get help, but they still can't help you. Right. You said something that was really, really strong that I use in similar language. Most of my life, I'm used to being the only one in every room, which meant that I can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. I've gotten to a place where finally I can be completely alone and never be lonely. When did that transition or journey happen for you? And when did you start listening to your voices versus all of the other?
Just over the last couple of years, as I've dove into more therapy and mindfulness and like figuring out who I was at my core and really loving that person, and creating my own labels that actually serve me. Right. Like when I read the book Rocket Fuel and, Gino describes a visionary, I'm like, wow, that's the first time anybody said all those traits are like actually like good. I'm like, all right, I'm a visionary. And like, I don't have to be all things to all people. And like, I just started, I could be my authentic self. And if I just need to surround myself with people that are going to embrace that, and that's a tough process, especially when you didn't live like that before. And then now you got this world, all these people that you've kind of attracted and so that's where I needed the space to heal. Right. That's right. Like, so I set up the system at my company so I didn't have to be there as much anymore, because those people were all attracted to, they knew that there was a bright light in Benny, but like, I needed space to like, just to be able to like get myself right, and I'm still going through that process. It's, I'm still going through that process, but it's much better because I'm so strong in the foundation of who I am. It doesn't matter what you tell me about myself today. Like you could say, man, you suck at podcasting. Hey man. Like then I just feel for you of like, why'd you have to say that? Or like if people try to bring me down, or like the haters out there, which I love those, cause like it just, that driven part of me gives me a little bit more fuel. But yeah, finding out who you were, understanding that, and then being still, and kind of helps.
Where are you still protecting yourself?
Where am I still protecting myself? I believe in my relationship with Brittany. She knows it. I mean, we're aware of it. It's just hard to like it's the trying to draw out more of the feminine energy inside of me, because I feel like I was depleted of that for like a long time. But I know the more feminine energy that I can like muster up inside of me, I become more of a complete human. But being okay to be able to do that, not have to always be the provider. And so like, I would say there is probably the biggest one, because like she has her own challenges and I'm trying to take care of her, but she also helps me a lot. Like it's a crazy like yin and yang. It's beautiful. But, I was hardwired for so long to like, I just do it myself, be the tough guy, like, don't don't tell her when things are going, do I want to tell her when things happen bad in business? Like, I don't need her to worry about it. Shoot, it's bad enough that I got to worry. Can she handle it? Like all these like things. But I've realized the more that I can just be open and honest with her and I have to come a lot slower. And so sometimes, if I say it in the wrong manner or the wrong speed, that can trigger her. And so I just basically have to sit down, wait 15 or 20 minutes, get the conversation where I'll be like, hey, hold her hand and be like, I got something I'm going through that I really need to share with you. Like, I need to do that more. I know how to teach someone else how to do that. And I'm really good at helping everybody else figure out how to do that. But doing it yourself is like, I'm still struggling with that. I'm protecting myself there.
Yeah. Do I have permission to give you a little bit of a reflection?
I mean, I guess that's what we're going to do here.
I mean, it's up to you. You can say no. I'll fully protect and give that.
Let's go.
I believe feedback is always permission based.
Okay.
Benny, it's really interesting. I've spent a lot of time with you on the phone. We've spent a lot of time on Zoom together. I can sense it and feel it even more when we're in person. And I say this with all the love I possibly can, because there's nothing wrong with what I'm about to say. It's a process and a dynamic. You learned a long time ago, even though you're a highly emotional being, to live and protect yourself up in your head, and to not fully integrate yourself into your body, to allow yourself to feel the depths of all of the emotion, even though you're a very emotional person, I would suggest. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I know. I
you
agree.
feel everything. And I would also suggest that you're likely an empath, which means you read other people and also absorb other people's energy. So even the process of being able to identify and distinguish what energy is yours and what energy isn't yours can be confusing at times, because it can stir up a bunch of shit. But part of your journey that I think is going to set you most free is when you can stop perseverating up here and allow the connection of the head and the heart to exist real time in every present moment. Because your heart is palpable, it's real, it's huge. And that's what people felt at the EOS conference, because you allowed that full connection embodiment to take place outside of the transactional elements of telling stories. Your greatest impact isn't in your head, it's in your heart. And so that's one thing that I would suggest, is that as it relates to Brittany, but as it relates to everybody, the more present and available you make your heart, the more free you're going to be, and the more connected you're also.
Thank you.
But you're trapped in your head, and I can feel it. And you even fought the emotion that you felt when you answered the question the way that you did. It was the first time I saw real emotion in your eyes, our whole conversation. And that's not saying that it's bad, because I also know, and I've spent time with you on the phone, and I've witnessed your talks, and I see where your emotion comes out and when you allow it. But I can see it so easily, because that's also my exact pattern. And it's the one that I lived and protected myself in for a very, very long time. I think there's also a big part of you that is still on a path seeking and desiring external approval.
I would agree with that.
And so that's what I would challenge you.
It gets less and less, but yes, it's still happening. So
and again, saying that it's still there is not to suggest that it's bad. Yeah. Yes, clearly it's not where it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's progress. And there's no final destination, bro. There's constant evolution of self. For anything I'm telling you, I have all the same shit I'm still working on. Like, it's not like I'm sitting here saying like there's any place that's right or wrong. That's where you are in your journey. But what I also hear is what you clearly want, which is where you're headed, where you desire, where you believe you can be. And what I also want to suggest is that there is a double-edged sword, because your desire for impact also is very closely related to your desire to receive the approval and validation for being able to give that impact. So how do you create your Disneyland at your home? Because that's what you were also saying, is it's like, how do I design my life so that my life becomes and allows everything outside of my core to be a manifestation of who I am, not the other way around?
Yeah, I read a book called Radical Husband, or How to Be a Radical Husband. And it was a great book, because in there, for so long in my life, it was all about me, right? And like trying to figure out how to like take care of myself. And, one of the things that I've been working on is, creating that that container for work and then creating that container for home. And actually, and Gino, that's another thing. One of his 10 disciplines is like, take time off. Well, take time off means like take the actual time off, but then don't think about work.
Bingo.
Don't think about the business idea that comes in while you're playing with your kids. And then like, you're more focused on that idea, even though you're still kind of there, but you're not there. And so that's going to be, that's something I'm really working on. I actually just signed up for Gino and Rob Dubé's mastermind.
Oh, cool.
To learn that even deeper, because I figured like, well, why not learn from the guys that teach it and have been living it for a few years. And so I'm going to be doing that. I'm really going to try to do things that, they love to do. And instead of always like kind of, I have a tendency to like Ben's vision, and Ben gets very articulate at creating his vision and telling him like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like I say it before everybody else says it. So people have to follow, right? Like it's kind of like how I'm wired. And so like, how can I like take down my visionary cape and let Brittany be the visionary at home? And then just, it's so hard to follow, even like when we're in the car and like even we're in the car and like it's her plan. But then I'm like, all right, what are we doing next? Like, and it's like, I don't know what you want to do next, babe. Like, you gotta tell me. But I'm trying to be in the back seat, right? Like, I'm trying to let her like lead like what she wants. And it gets frustrating because it's like, I've been programmed my whole life to just, I see it, I do it, I go forward, people follow. And that's a great trait when I'm out of that container. Now, when I'm inside the home container, we're living in Ben's world. And it's like, man, I don't want that. Like, I don't want that at all. Do you have any tips for that?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And some I'm going to share with you now and others I'll share with you later. But what I would suggest is you also have this external vision and belief that's very clear about what it means to be a provider and what it means to be a leader. And what's interesting is they show up differently in different parts of our world. But you still have this belief that I need to be the guy. I'm the one that's going to save everybody. I'm the one that's going to impact everybody. I'm the one that's going to build the business. I'm the one that's going to provide for everybody else. And largely because a lot of what your past has conditioned you to believe is that you need to be the one to be stable. You need to be the one to be able to take care of everyone else. You need to be the one to be able to prioritize and put your own things last. And you're ultimately pulling it all together. In a marriage, it's interesting. Ashley and I think, used to play the same game that you're describing. And we would inevitably realize that one of us was leading at any different times, or that somebody would be in a hole and we'd have to reach down and pull the other person out. When we started to realize that we're actually walking the same path, it's not about who is ahead or who's leading. It's about how do we walk beside each other.
I like that.
And so what I would suggest is, even in this concept of you're still struggling to ask for help, even from your partner, even from the person who sees you more than almost anybody on this planet ever has, who's made you feel safer and more protected, more understood and more connected than any other human ever has in this earth. Yep. And I know that because I've heard you talk about her, and I see the light go on when you talk about her, right? With the safest person you've ever been around, you still don't completely let go.
I know.
And so getting to the root of what is it that you're actually hiding still from her will be probably a key to creating the freedom you want in your relationship.
Yeah, I'm trying to get over how like to navigate asking for help versus like, and I know this comes from the comparison of like when I see other people, especially like online, like be like the woe is me, like, you know, it's like, I'm not like that. It's like, how do I do it in a way that like doesn't seem like I'm being needy?
See, that's the issue. You believe asking for help is a weakness and it's putting a burden on others. How often does somebody offer you help and you actually accept it?
Not very often.
Okay. That's the other side of it.
Because I always feel like, because then the cynic in me is just like, what do they want? Or like,
right. Because most of the time in your life, because you learn to receive love, validation, and connection through performance, it was contingent upon you doing something.
Yeah, it's true.
There's always been strings attached.
Yeah.
And so even when somebody tries to pick up the bill at dinner.
Oh, yeah, right, dude. It's right. I actually already have the card. And the
I know this about you because I used to do the same fucking shit.
I already have the card.
Yeah, the waitress got the card in the first part when you walked in.
Everyone else is like slow rolling for it. I'm like, yeah, it's already done.
Dude, that's my game. I played that game forever.
I did it last night.
I know this about you, and I haven't even been to a meal with you.
Yeah.
But I know this about you because that's how you always show up. And it's twofold. One, you actually genuinely care about taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
But there's also an element of like, this is where I get to feel good about myself because I'm taking care of everybody.
Well, I also feel like when you invite people to do things, and I'm always the guy that's always the one that like hardly anybody ever invites me to do anything.
I identify with that as well.
And so since I'm the guy that always invites, I'm the guy that like put this together. I guess I'm the guy that pays for it because like I'm the guy that put it together.
But at the same time, here's the reality. You're actually cutting off their energetic ability to give.
I understand. Oh, I get it.
Right? Because of inability to receive. And so that's part of what I would suggest is that asking for help isn't a weakness and it's not putting a burden, particularly for those that love you and want to give it to you. But that's really difficult. And it's really difficult to allow yourself such vulnerability to be able to actually receive at that level and realize that it's not that I'm broken and I'm not putting a burden. It's that, guess what, dude, you're a fucking human and you feel things like all of us do. And you carry a lot of weight. And just because you can fucking carry it doesn't mean it's not heavy. Right? Brittany's willingly walking alongside you, asking you how she can help hold up your arms to carry the weight. And you're like, no, I got it. I fucking got it. I can hold this all by myself, Brittany. But that's also the same pattern that's caused breaks. Right? And so that's what I would suggest. And again, we'll take some of this offline, but I think I can absolutely help you there.
Poor people at home are going to be like, what did they talk about offline?
Yeah, they are. But there's
for $9 a month, you can get in our subscriber channel. You can hear all my dirt. No, I'm just kidding.
No, this is where my friend hat comes in, and I'm like, I'm going to shut this part off because I want to give you guys some level of privacy that is involved in this as well. I believe true strength hides behind vulnerability. I think that the men who are capable of showing real emotion, communicating about it, understanding the weaknesses, it's not only the way that we alleviate suffering for ourselves, but it's also what gives it to other people. There's 4 areas we all suffer. It's the things that are left unsaid, the things we lack permission to feel or say, the things we lack the words to articulate or understand, or the things that are left undone. So every time you tell your story, even when it's in a transactional, like I'm just breezing through it, again, I do the same thing.
I don't want to make it all about me. I really want to give value to the audience.
I know.
I'm like, all right, cool. Back.
But listen, but again, that's also you diminishing the power of your story. Because to you, it's so normalized. And so it's like slowing down even around the moment of I woke up in an ambulance. You do it on stage because it's also creating a connection and bringing people in. But even in this forum, right? Like, if I don't want to listen to you, I'll interrupt you and ask you a different fucking question.
Well, I guess I just didn't, yeah. And part of me is like, again, always thinking ahead, thinking like, all right, well, I don't really know what you actually really want to talk about today. So like, do we really, do I want to like...
Yep. But here's the thing.
Give me those 4 things again.
The things that are left unsaid.
Things that are left unsaid.
The things we lack permission to feel or say.
Things that we lack permission to feel or say.
The things we lack the words to articulate or understand.
Things that we lack the words to articulate or understand.
Or the things that are left undone.
The things that are left undone.
So whether you're fully embodying it and feeling the emotion or going through it transactional, it almost doesn't matter to a degree because every time you tell your story, you're saying things that would otherwise be left unsaid. You're communicating truth. That the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the more you actually detach the emotion from it that used to keep you sunk. So it does alleviate suffering, right, for you. But every time you tell your story, particularly in the depths of your story, what you're also doing is giving people permission to feel and say things that they wouldn't have otherwise. And you're giving them words to articulate and understand them through a lens that you're providing, which frees them to act and do. And so that's where, again, even from the head to the heart comparison that I was saying before, your heart will communicate more clearly than any words ever will.
I believe that.
And the more you open yourself to that full spectrum, especially with Brittany, but in the broader sense as well, your desire to create impact is going to happen more and more and more and more regularly and easier through the process because it's just going to be normalized for how you live. You're a fucking amazing human being. In the time that I've known you, you have an unbelievable heart. You genuinely do care for others. And I've seen you in many situations put other people first because you are selfless, you're humble, and you're grounded. You're just getting started on your impact journey, like genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about where the path is going to go. What I'd like to understand is, in this concept of life by design, without chunking it into 90-day windows and 10-year windows,
Mm-hmm.
who is it that you want the world to know as Benny, in your legacy, in what they say when you're not in the room?
So those are the two questions: legacy and what they say. So legacy, like I just always think about like my funeral. I think about, I have 2 kids now, who knows, but maybe by the time I die, maybe about 4. I have no idea. But let's just say the 2. The people that come, or the people that do their whole online thing, because now it'll probably just be easier to leave a comment on Facebook and not have to show up to the funeral. It's almost like I saw somebody die, like, I don't know, like a year ago, and like more people commented all these nice things, and I'm like nobody showed up to the funeral. I'm just like, man, like we still got to show up.
Yeah, we do.
So anyway, I just want people to come up and say, hey, your dad really made an impact on my life. And I want my kids to be able to say to them that like my dad was like always there. He was super present. Yeah. Now you got the emotions coming. Yeah. So like that's it. I think that there's going to be people that come out of the woodwork, and I hear stories, and even now I'm alive, which makes me feel good, of like people that I've like helped in just quick conversations that I don't even remember.
Yep.
Brittany was at the doctor, I don't know, 6 months ago, and the doctor said, hey, I have a patient that knows Benny. And she said that Benny helped her with her business like 5 or 8 years ago. And he gave her some business advice that totally changed her life. And I don't even know who this lady is. I don't even know her name. Like I said, did you get her name? So I can send her like a cool message. No idea who it is. And so like, that's really cool. Because like, you don't, for whatever reason, I love feedback,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all crave it, especially the good feedback. And so I think just those messages, like something just as simple as that, like I think like that's like I always think about that. I'm thinking like like the waitress, like you don't know how much of an impact you can have on her, not just by the tip that you give her, but by the way you treat her.
That's it.
And so like for me, like that's the legacy. What was the second question?
Well, what will people say about it? I mean, it's kind of the same question.
In like another room?
It's kind of the same question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said about me. I'm awesome. I have an amazing heart. I care. It's genuine. I'm like a big kid walking around planet Earth. I always make the room better. I always raise up the frequency of everything that I do. I make everyone's day a little bit brighter. I'm that light, and
How much of that do you believe today?
85%, 75 to 85%. I mean, of course, I'm, the cynic inside me says, wow, and most of that's it depends on who you ask, right? And where they're at in their journey, right? And so like, if you find the people that are like more awake, and above, they're like at the 200 level of consciousness on the consciousness scale, and they're at least 200 or above, they're all going to say the good stuff. If you find the people that are 200 or below that, they're going to, he's just out to make money. Like I have people in my own family that say, I just do everything just to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I know why they're saying that, because I remember what those conversations were like when I wasn't like, and I'm like, man, like I wish you knew like the impact and the purpose and like how much I like, give back. Like it comes in and it goes out. Like it's just it's a flow.
Yep.
And but they're just unaware. And I have, it doesn't bother me. Maybe a little bit, but because I wish they could understand. But it's no different than when I was a 7-year-old kid. I wish they could understand. But I'm not going to let that hold me back anymore in life. I'm not going to hang on to that, and I'm going to keep moving because I know that I don't have to, but I know that I want to be the best version of myself. I'm still got a lot of things I got to work on, but I believe that eventually through my life and through how God works in my life, that I will be a living testimony to what's possible.
I think you already are, brother. You know, I've had people ask me before, they're like, Brian, are you self-actualized?
I don't even know what that means. So
it means 50 different things, right? Okay. But where I'm going with it is, it's like, I'm as self-actualized as I can be in this moment. Am I where I'm going to be tomorrow or a week from now or 10 years from now? Probably not. But if I've done the work to be as aware as I possibly can be, right? Like, that's the reality, is that wherever you are right now, you are. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to watch where you've come from, like the progress, what's been demonstrated. Dude, to go from almost dead, drug addict, drug dealer, like all of that, to somebody who has a growing $10 million plus roofing company.
But that's not who I was, though. See, I was still the 7-year-old inside of me is still that guy that let you see all the good. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's easy to say that, like, because that's what gets the headlines and the clicks, and that's what'll sell the books and all that stuff. That's not me. That's, well, I guess it's all me.
It's all you.
But those are just reflections of what I had going on in my head and my heart, you know. And so,
but here's the reality: the world will always judge you based on your actions. Mm-hmm. They will never judge you based on your intent. Mm. And for those of us that have been misunderstood and haven't been seen in so many environments for our whole lives, or people think that we have a different intent, and that's what we always are feeling like we have to defend and justify, even to the point of what you just said with the money with your family. It's like, oh, he just thinks it's all about money. And you're like, no, like, my intent is this, right? But they receive and judge based on whatever actions they've either seen in the past or wherever it is today. Here's the difference, though. Most people judge people based on what they've done, not what they do.
It's true.
And I think you judge yourself based on what you've done versus what you do.
Maybe sometimes. Not as much anymore.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's moments. But the difference between who you are today and 10 years from now, I think that's what I'm trying to highlight, brother, is like, you already are showing people what's possible. Mm-hmm. Your story in and of itself is a story of turning your pain into purpose, which is a big part of the message that you promote, right? It's really doing the difficult things and the work that nobody sees that actually allows you to step into the light that you're already shining, right? And you're doing that. And so that's what I would just suggest to you is if you just stay consistent and you stay congruent and you continue to open that heart, people are going to make whatever judgments they want. The proof is in how you live and what you do every day, which I would suggest is in alignment with all of what you said you hope people will say about you. You deserve some love and some grace.
That's why I named my daughter, whose middle name is Grace, Evie Grace. So,
and you deserve it.
We all need more grace in our life.
You deserve it,
especially me.
Especially, we all do. You said it best, but yes, especially you. So that's why I'm just pouring a little bit of love into you right now, because I love you.
I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you, and I appreciate how you show up in the world, and you have impacted me in multiple little occasions through our time of knowing each other. And so for that, I want to thank you, because it's been positive in my life, and knowing you is a blessing.
Thank you. Knowing you has been a blessing. I'm excited to have you on my show.
I know. So we got to get that going here pretty quick so that you can stay on your podcast tour and actually make it all happen. So as we're coming to an end and coming to a close here, I would love it if you could look into that camera and leave us with a closing thought spoken from your heart and soul. What do you want the audience to know? What do you want them to believe? What do you want them to see?
I want you to know that we all have painful moments in our life, and I know they can be hard. I want you to look back at a time when you experienced that pain, but hopefully you've seen through the passage of time, maybe that where that pain actually was for a reason, and it was for something good that's come out of it, maybe a gift. And I want you to be able to take that pain, figure out where the purpose is the next time this happens in your life, and kind of manifest what good can come out of it. And I believe that if you can do that in more real time as the pain happens, you'll be able to heal that pain, and you'll be able to navigate that, and it won't hold you back from living your true self. And because you deserve to be free.
Yeah, you do. We all do. I appreciate that, my friend. Now we're going to put your show links and all that stuff in the show notes, but just for the purposes of actually allowing people to hear it, where can people find you, learn from you, follow you? Bro, there's a lot of wisdom that you're going to continue to share, and I know people are going to want to tap into it.
BennyFisher.com.
Bingo. Super easy, man.
I followed you.
It's like, I mean, if you're your brand, right? Like, it seems like that makes sense.
Yeah, I was just glad it was available, 3 years ago when I bought it.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being here with us today, my friend.
Sounds good.
For those of you that just watched Benny flip open his lid, man, he did get real. He did get raw. And despite the fact that he's been able to tell his story so many times that it becomes normalized, he also does have the depth of what he continues to feel. I also love his vulnerability real time to be able to acknowledge the areas that he's still growing, the areas that he still sees opportunity to step into what he's capable of. Because the reality of it is, everything you need is already in you. It's a matter of identifying and removing what no longer serves you so that you can actually allow yourself to live the life you want by design. Take it from Benny. He's doing it and continuing to do it every single day. So remember, the only way to get there is to flip open your lid and scan your can.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.